Thank you for your patience over the last couple of weeks. I have indeed missed you. Um, and God knows that there has been so much happening in a very short period of time that somewhat hindered us meeting and having a conversation. And so tonight's conversation is about managing change. But I just want to remind you why Seeded Harvest exists. Seeded Harvest is the story of my life in some respects. It is I'm old disheveled today, huh? It is the story behind, oh, sorry. It is the story of my life in a conversation, not in any chronological order, but just about the seeds that have been planted in my life and how God has um, fulfilled and created a harvest out of it. And so tonight we're going to talk about managing change and what that impact has on our lives. I do want to introduce you and get you excited, hopefully, about guests that we're having over the next couple of weeks. We will have Jessica Lightbourne will be talking about abuse, and Sharon Haywood um, talking about forgiveness. And so for the month, those both are lined up for the month of May. And I am so excited about those conversations. Seeded Harvest is all about a conversation. And so tonight, should we get any viewers online and those that jump on, feel free to share comments, anything that you speak to or that you ask or query rather, I'll speak to it. But I just want to talk about change. What is it like and what happens when we have to manage change? Change comes in so many different forms, and um, it can be exhausting. It can be rewarding. Um, it can be a whole lot of different emotions attached to change. But today we're going to talk about how death even brings about change. When the loss of a loved one, um, colleague, friend, foe, even sometimes, it creates a level of discomfort, pain, emotions that we may or may not have experienced before. So, therefore, triggering some things that we've experienced in the past and thought that we got over them, but really hadn't. um, and so when we talk and consider the impact that death has, how do we manage and get past death? Our support system is super important to ensure that we are allowing others to help us navigate a space that is painfully uncomfortable. Because with death, God forbid, the death of a spouse or a significant other could impact our finances. And obviously, outside of um, as sensitive of a topic as it is, outside of the normal emotions and feelings, there is the impact of the emotions of the children, how it impacts finances and family relationships, how it is going to impact the structure and the running of your household. So death has a very large role to play um, in change and how to manage it. I remember when I lost my father some years ago, and while we weren't really close over the years, our last 3 years of life were extremely impactful in my life, and we had a really great relationship. And I, as I think on it, I don't think I've ever taken his cell number out of my phone. Let me just check, because there were times where I would go back to his number for whatever reason. Yep, Dad, Artley Richardson, still in there. I won't call out the number because I'm sure it's someone else's number now. But for whatever reason, I never took it out of my phone. It was something really significant because he was the first person to call me on my birthday every morning. Shout out to my big bro, Bishop Clark Minus, who he now ends up being the very first phone call for the most part that I get. So he's kind of taken the place of my dad in that regard. And he would call just to listen to my voicemail that I left, just to be able to hear my voice. So that was difficult. Just something as simple as might have seemed taking his number out of my phone. And when I say years now, I'm talking over 10 years. My father's been passed. And so that is significant. Death brings about that level of change. Divorce. Having been divorced myself, um, that was a huge impact. I mean, it will impact transportation, similar to death, because it is the mourning and the loss of. It's relational. Um, it's having to cut off ties sometimes because divorce doesn't always end um, in a mutual understanding that we're going to be friendly or we're going to continue to communicate. And so they may have been your best friend at one point in time in life, right? Divorce is another, how it impacts the children, how it impacts co-parenting. Um, how does it impact, again, finances? Who gets the house? All of these things are change. Who gets custody of the children? They're all change, and the change has layers to it that we have to navigate. And we'll talk about how to navigate the change as well tonight. Um, the other is a career change. You've been in a particular role for so long. Sometimes it's through unfortunate termination, willingly or unwillingly. Those are all very um, those are things that require a level of change management in our lives. And how is it that we're going to function beyond what we're used to? So I may have made 9 o'clock every day. If I get a new job, or when I get a new job, I may be required to make 7 o'clock. So there is change as it relates to time. There's change as it relates to the structure of my household, the structure of my body, and the impact that it has on my body. These are all very real things that one would deal with as we navigate change. Getting married, very exciting, like getting a new job, right? Getting married can be very stressful and exciting. It brings on a like bittersweet emotions because you have to manage relationships, manage people, and manage expectations. Ensure that your expectations have been communicated so that people know and are comfortable with what to expect and what you expect of them. Getting married can damage relationships while you're building relationships. Those are very key things when considering how to navigate change. Daylight savings time. And body's so used to getting up at one time, and then I now have to get up an hour later or an hour earlier because I lost a day, or an hour, I gained an hour. It may impact my pay, and how does that impact things in my life? Um, Change of university and school, whether it's for yourself or your children. God knows that when your children go off, I remember a season when there was a empty nest and I didn't know what to do. Heck, I put myself through therapy. I didn't know I needed therapy. It was the first time that I sat down and talked to someone about and let them into my space and let them into my life. But it was necessary because I realized that my routine and my life surrounded my children. And so when there was no one to fill that space, there was a gap, there was a void. And so something as simple as, at that point in my life, it was gardening. Just get your hands dirty in the soil. And that was very rewarding for me. But it took having to talk it out to be able to determine and figure out what would be useful for me. That was for me. That was a hobby. I think now in life, I want to learn how to crochet. If anyone knows how to crochet and you're willing to teach me, let me know. Pregnancy or the loss of, again, death. becoming pregnant, finding out that you're pregnant, changes in your body, changes in your diet, having to go to numerous doctor's appointments, and depending on the time of life that you become pregnant, whether it's at a young age. My first pregnancy was at 17. I had my first child when I was 18. That was a change. I became a teenage mother and having to figure out how to no longer be, because I was still very much a child, yes, at 18, 17, 18, because I hadn't lived life in that vein before. These are all things about change. Losing a child while pregnant, stillborn pregnancy, abortion, for various reasons, God forbid, to consider. When your children graduate high school and middle school and primary school, how does that impact life? Before they didn't have homework, now they have homework. I got to fit and navigate that again back into my time, because we still have extracurricular activities, because they may have been an athlete or are an athlete, and those times don't change, but school times change because of the extracurriculars associated with school. All of these things can be stressful, and we don't have a firm foundation on how to get through them. Um, Major illness and a major injury, or major injury and an illness. Our health is our wealth. It is our greatest resource outside of God. Um, Next to God, because without it, we can't navigate. I mean, my toe has been hurting me, guys, for like the last couple of days, and I think I've just banged it, but I feel the impact on the rest of my body from my little baby toe, my pinky toe. So injury, when you loss of limb, I gotta now, I have a loved one who lost a limb over the years, and they love to fish and they love to work with their hands, but even losing a limb on their lower extremity impacted how they even use their hands, and how they work and get around. um, and last but not least on my list of things, and there are so much more that I could go into, is moving. Um, Moving, they say, is one of the most stressful things next to marriage, and it comes up there with marriage and divorce and things, in terms of the stress levels that it creates and how it impacts our lives. And so let's just talk about how to navigate through and how to manage the change that we're experiencing in life. And so, when you're talking about things like divorce, getting married, even what school or university you or your children are going to attend, depending on who, um, moving, career changes, we cannot be so caught up in what people think. Career change, we cannot be so caught up in what people think, and how what they think is going to impact our decision making and how we move. So, um, when people are speaking against the decisions that you make, there's a scripture that says, "Don't throw your pearls before swine." Be very mindful of, who you allow into your space and what you share about those things, because those things could further impact, or what you share or who you shared it with can further impact the change that you're already experiencing. That's really difficult. So make sure that you have a really, really great support system and people who are your cheerleaders and not the opposite. um, Focus on your support. Focus on the support that you absolutely do have. who who are my ride or dies? Who is in my corner, who doesn't think about or isn't challenged by my mobility? Who's going to encourage me when I'm down, and when depression might hit because of the loss that I've just experienced? Who is always going to be in my corner, even if it's just to sit there and cry with me, or sit and eat a pint of ice cream, or a gallon if need be? I mean, who knows, right? But who are your cheerleaders in life? um and so, because people can be hurtful, hurt people. And this is where, for me, therapy is so important. I spoke with my therapist this week, and we talked just about some of the very things that I'm navigating as it relates to change. And these are some of the very key things that we spoke about. So it was interesting that it all tied in. You may need to socialize more. You may need to get out and exercise. Find balance in some way, shape, or form of it all. When things go absolutely crazy and you don't know what to do, sometimes it's okay to just be still and do nothing until you're sure that you're sure that you're sure this is the way that I should go, because this is the plan. And so being quiet sometimes allows us to build out a strategy for that change, for that impact that life is happening. Go out and have coffee with friends, go to lunch, do the things that make and bring you joy. Because sometimes we do need a distraction from the noise of life when change is going on, because change is inevitable. Change is inevitable. And how are you? People will say, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. And it becomes, and it has become the norm. When someone says, how are you? We automatically say we're fine, because that's the automatic response, even if we're not fine. Stop lying to yourself. Stop lying to other people about how you're feeling. Now, be very mindful. You don't want to tell everybody about how you're feeling either. And so for some, you may need to say, today is a great day. Or, I'm grateful, I'm thankful, because even in the midst of all that's going on, in the midst of change, we all have something to be grateful for. Gratitude is something I do my best to wake up every day and live by. That what is it that you're grateful for today, Lynae? Because it'll help you get over the hurdle of whatever the day is going to offer you and present to you. So there's no need to always be, I'm fine, I got it all together. No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't have it all together, and it's okay. It is no need to compare ourselves. My change and things that are going on in my life and your life, it's okay. We don't have to compare what's happening with me to someone else and how they're dealing with it versus how I'm dealing with it, or how they dealt with it versus how I'm dealing with it. It doesn't make us weak. It doesn't make us any stronger. It makes us human. It makes us who we are. And so no need to compare. Sometimes it's good to compare in that. I mean, there's benefit in it sometimes, in terms of if there was a strategy that aligns with your morals and your principles that someone else used and they're very close to you, then that's an opportunity for you to say, okay, let me take some of those very things and compare notes. But that has to be someone who's within your trusted circle that you're comparing those notes with, because they may have gone through it as well. Yeah. Um, so also sometimes it's just necessary. Let's shift our perspective. Um, it is not always as grave or harsh as it might seem. Um, what is the silver lining in the midst of whatever the change is? What is it that I could be doing different when I'm in the midst of change? So okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I have to pick up the children from school. I have to go home and cook dinner. My boss is requiring a report that's due on the very night that, I don't know, I have a podcast. It's happened. Um, my friends are having an event, and you have all of these things that are compounding in the midst of all of this change that's going on. But sometimes it's just a matter of change in perspective. Okay, can someone else pick up the kids? How can I move things around to be able to best suit the situation and circumstance that I'm going through? And is it as dire? So that might mean needing to pick up your support system to say, how is it that I need you right now? Like, help me to shift my thinking, because change of perspective is really shifting your thinking from one place to another, right? In a positive, right? In a positive. Um, and when it all feels too very, very much, when it feels like it's a lot, make sure you're talking to someone. Don't hold all of this in the midst of the change and crisis that you might be dealing with. While there's great change and there's good change, we navigate that change relatively far easier sometimes than we do the negative changes. And like when we talked about death and illnesses and injury, major injuries, and those sorts of things. Don't try to take it on and put it all on your own shoulder, because um, I live by this saying that a very wise woman once told me, and she said, about this time next year. And what does that mean? Next year, this time, it's not going to be as heavy as it is right now. And so change comes and change goes. And there is a time and a season for all things under heaven. And so just as the seasons change, so does life. And so as quickly as one change may come and impact our life, something else will come that will supersede that. And that may be the great reward of whatever that negative was. And so share your heart and share your story with that trusted circle. I can't stress enough how trusted your circle must be, because the very people that are for you sometimes are not. And sometimes even that in of itself is another change, when we find that the people we thought were once in our corner are not in our corner. And so I want to leave you with this. Interestingly enough, we are celebrating, or the world in some countries will be celebrating child mental health. Um, but mental health is very important, and it's a thing for all of us and everyone. And so change brings about a level of mental health that we have to navigate. And so I want for you to consider therapy. I know I stress it so often, but it has done me a world of good over the years. There's a lot going on in life right now. And aside from the God I serve, um, God and therapy are necessary. And so there are two places I want to leave with you, and that is mycounselor.online, a really great group. It's a company I've used, and they will match you with a therapist that suits your needs. And they have a opt-out time period, so you might meet with Lynae Richardson therapist, and they have different levels of their therapists as well. So you might meet with a Lynae and then realize that Lynae doesn't necessarily meet my needs, my specific needs, or there may be a personality clash or whatever. You have an opt-out time, and so you can evaluate your therapist, your counselor. If you don't feel it's anything major where medication or anything's going to be necessary, they do have like entry level therapists who are getting their credits and those sorts of things for university and school. And then there's another one. I believe they're out of the UK. I have reached out to them in the past. I have not used them. I have heard really great things about them, but they're called taprootpsychology.com. Taprootpsychology.com. I'm really proud of this one. It is a local Bermudian, born and bred, I believe, young lady by the name of, last name Savory. I cannot remember her first name. I want to say it's Kelly, but Savory. And so I absolutely want to encourage you that as you're navigating change, ensure that you're not trying to navigate it all at once. You take it in stride. You consider the perspective, shift your perspective, find a group of friends and loved ones that are ride or die. And sometimes those that are or have been the ride or die may not be the ones that you need in that particular season of your life as you're navigating change. And so I see Maria's watching. Shout out to you, my love. God bless you. Know that life happens, and it happens to all of us. So as you're navigating change, and when you come out on the other side, Share your story and your heart and your hand with someone else so that they can understand and appreciate that I too can overcome. And so, in closing, I want you all to know that I absolutely love you. I thank you for tuning in. For those that are on now and that will join later, this has been another segment of Seeded Harvest, episode number 6, Managing Stress. I do want to remind us that we will be on 2 more times during the month of May. Keep an eye out on the notifications on the Seeded Harvest page or on our YouTube page. You can like, share, subscribe to be able to get the notifications. And so this month we will be talking about abuse with a near and dear friend, working colleague that has, I believe, become a friend, Jessica Lightbourne, and we'll give you her credentials and talk about her some more as we draw nearer. We'll be talking about abuse and how abuse impacted even my life, and sharing my story as it relates to abuse. And we will also be talking to also a very near and dear friend and loved one of mine, Aunt Sharon Hayward. I call her Aunt Sharon Hayward, as we discuss forgiveness and our journey as it related to forgiveness. So we have some really great topics that are coming up before we close out May. And again, I want to thank you all for joining me. Know that I love you to life, and stay tuned for all that has to come. Take care. Bye-bye.